a new series of interviews. Wanted, the Skillset 2020. I'm excited to introduce to you Chris K. Franzen, Area Vice President, West India, General Manager, Grand Hyatt, Mumbai Hotel and Residences. Chris grew up in the Swiss Alpine village of Zermatt, on the foot of Mount Matterhorn. Chris gained experience in many countries, such as Switzerland, Germany, the US, Australia, Russia, the UAE, Oman, Qatar, and of course India. Before joining Hyatt 21 years ago, he also worked for Hilton and many small luxury boutique hotel operators. His experience ranges from luxury upscale to selected service operations. Good day, Chris. How are you today?
Ivy, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you very much, and good morning to you. Good evening to me.
There you go. So we all want to know, what skill set did you apply in order to navigate the 10 hotels you are overlooking throughout the pandemic?
Well, I guess one of the most important skill sets is that people are willing to multitask and able to change. I mean, being able to change is probably the most important skill set, because this pandemic was something that none of us has ever experienced. And it definitely required a completely different approach than what has been done before. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And in general, what skill set on the management level is needed now?
Look, I made a few, since I knew you were going to call, I had a bit of a insight into myself, thinking what is required these days for management, right? Because of this very special situation. I think besides being willing to challenge the status quo, it's also important that we listen more and more to our guests. I know this has been said many times before, but I think especially when it comes to hygiene and safety, this is something that's very important and very dear to any guest. If we don't get this right as an industry, we will have a big problem. And I think the hotels who take hygiene and safety seriously and incorporate that into their daily work and guest experience will be the ones who will be successful. That's for sure.
Very good. And what skill set is required on the line staff level and specialized position in order to succeed in this new era?
Yeah, if you look at the line staff, I think the days are gone where you had the specialists, with the exception of a few very important positions. I think people have to be more generalists. I think they have to be willing to multitask. I think multitasking is probably the one big learning. To a certain extent in North America, Europe, Australia, parts of Asia, this has been done where payroll is higher than usual than in the rest of the world. Multitasking is a must. But I think this will now also come to other parts of the world where this was never really practiced. Besides multitasking, I think people have to be willing to relocate if they want to grow, if they want to remain in the same hotel for the rest of their career. This will be a challenge, because the ability to move and take your knowledge and put it into a new hotel or a new destination will be very important for the growth of any company, hotel or restaurant. Absolutely.
So keywords, really flexibility, multitasking, skilling, absolutely. So as leaders, one should not forget about the next generation of hoteliers. It's part of our responsibility. Chris, we are both from Switzerland, and we were talking about the freshly new graduates from hotel management schools. They worked and studied so hard to get their diploma. What happens to them? What expansion on skill set is needed there?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question. And I received a number of emails from students that I mentor in hotel schools. And there seems to be a bit of almost a fear at the moment, what is going to happen? Because obviously a lot of hotel companies on the corporate level or on the operational level are not hiring at the moment. They just wait and see what's happening next. Look, the one thing I tell anyone who asks me is, if you can afford and don't need an income right now, either keep on studying or educate yourself something that you always wanted to learn. It may not be related to hotel management. Maybe something completely different, expand your marketing skill set, for example, or do some volunteer work. I think volunteer work is a great way to learn and also gain experience. And when I say volunteer work, it doesn't even have to be in a hotel. It can be in any other field, right? You want to go and work for a non-government NGO organization, do it. Now's the time, and come back in half a year or a year's time. No employer will look at the CV saying you have a gap. Most CVs these days have gaps. As long as you can explain it and you can explain what you've done, I think it's a great skill you learned. It will also help you in leading a team later on. I think that's quite important.
I really love that idea, and especially now that emotional intelligence, is a skill that will be just really very important. So I think charity work will support that, the development of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. And I think it makes you grow as a person. I think in many ways you develop a much better and deeper understanding of another culture, of another person. This old saying, you should walk in someone else's shoes. I think if you follow that path, doing work in an NGO, volunteer work, this is probably a skill you will learn very quickly that will help you a lot in the future.
Exactly, and you'll become more compassionate, absolutely. And Chris, last but not least, I believe you were always a supporter of incorporating useful technology where it makes sense, of course. Can you tell us more about it and what that meant now during the pandemic for you and the company?
Yeah, that's a great question, Heidi. I was always a technophile, so I love technology. I always try to introduce new technology. And in the good old days, people always said, well, maybe we shouldn't do that. It takes away from the guest experience, from the personal interaction. Now with this pandemic, with this COVID-19, suddenly everything should be touchless. So from a technophile point of view, it's almost a dream come true, right? Because now suddenly you have to introduce software, you have to introduce apps. I mean, we're not delivering newspapers anymore. You download the app and you have 200 newspapers at your fingertip, right? Rest menus can be changed immediately. You don't have to reprint them because it's all on a QR code that is accessing a system in the back, right? Not to mention keyless entry, right? You will see the jump we are making right now would have taken us without COVID in our industry another 5 to 10 years, and that jump will be done now within a year. You watch it. Absolutely.
So something great that came out of this as well, right, Chris?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I really thank you for your time. It was very insightful, and I wish you and the team all the best and much of success. Talk to you soon.
Heidi, namaste from Mumbai. Thank you very much, and wishing you also.
Namaste.